A moment to talk about the team players and my personal legacy. Dr. Carol Sylvester was a psychiatrist working with the team, Ben Ligason, Steve Tandy, and the Obama group, who continued to ride me into coma years and years and years after they've been shown for hogswash. But what they're trying to pimp is interesting. Dr. Sylvester, who had it in for me, all this stuff about schizophrenia, labia, this and that, um, misfiring neurons, unable to process rational information, etc., and so on. Stop short of calling it genetic schizophrenia, not because of what Harlan White called that thing in my face. I mean, I've said this before, it's pointless in the company that's reviewing my documents to repeat it. But I have said this many times before. If everybody who had schizophrenia also had a damaged ruptured facial nerve, the issue of whether it was genetic or epigenetic would be solved. Well, she stopped short of calling my father schizophrenia. She said I'd rather doubt that. He was a senior faculty, decorated naval veteran, and a widely published writer on the subject of education. Now, this is why that's interesting. There were a couple of people at Pitt who tried to pull this. Schulman's henchmen and this crowd around Amanda Harcourt and Yoko Ono, who, by the way, my father was alive for several years after Fripp and Gabriel began writing to me, which is a very important consideration when they talk about working with David Lucarelli on a staged and phony intercept, which they call real. Because the only word he got of it was that he was dying. But don't know who was on his obituary. So the people taunting me have certainly registered that they don't care about my father's. Um, I mean, they actually tampered with their tonsillings to intone that they were impinging on behalf of Bethany. So Dr. Sylvester would be well within her professional rights as a psychiatrist to question what Bethany's doing, attacking the reputation of a man who was signing the diplomas on his deathbed as emeritus faculty. Or is it that there are some wingnuts doing it without their permission and consent? Either way, the ravenous gang that cluck from George Galloway and Ringo Starr are just that. And they're tearing the carpets trying to make a hostage look like they're a victim. They're not a victim of gangsters because they worship gangs. They say, we know how to deal with gangs, man. That makes us cool. We have cred. While weeping their crocodile tears for Gaza and turning stories of children being put to death into parables about what they would like, Paul McCartney would like to do to me. And this shows their sublime gifts for empathy. Ha ha, ha ha ha. And they make no secret that they're just trying to win the prize. They're trying to get money. They're trying to get some kind of approval rating. Now, I want to talk about the institution my father's from, because it would be rather hard to turn me into a non-entity at the University of Pittsburgh. They have done that in various UW dialecticisms. All of these people have much, much more money and power than me. But they say, oh, I'm compromised because when I called for Pitt to divest, I was working at Pitt. I'll let Seattle explain that. I don't want to try to. That's like saying I was compromised for opposing these gangsters when they drove recklessly around Kelly Elementary School. It compromised me to be indignant and quit the job. I mean, it's smart Alex reverberating in the roster of stupidities. One of them says, there's a letter from Peduto, a letter to yourself. No, it's a letter from Peduto to me. You see the difference? Was the letter to Leslie a letter to yourself? Did you mean to ask me, was it a letter to Tom Gordon? No, it was a letter to Leslie Katz. That she was a partner of Tom Gordon and Martin Edelman may very well be relevant in light of what they had in Wanamaker's refrigerator and the sort of cackling that goes on in rival locker rooms for people who secretly crave a pat on the posterior from Toon, which all of these idiots do. They've never shown me any remorse in torturing me. Neither has Pitt. I'll get back to my father's reputation of Pitt, but while I'm on the subject of me and Pitt, my argument with Pitt was that couldn't believe that they would say that you should win even when you know you're wrong in a court of law. My father was in ethics at that college. I had an argument. They called it picking a fight. Now, the college I went to, CCAC, when we had discussions, they weren't even called arguments, much less picking a fight. But what I didn't understand was what Mark Nordenberg, former Dean of Law and Chancellor of the Third Reich, I mean the Fourth Reich, I mean the Israeli Reich, I mean the Fourth of Zionism, July Day, I mean the University of Pittsburgh, Mark Nordenberg. Read my lips, Mark Nordenberg, schmuck. Was that his idea wasn't just that you should win, even when you know you're sick and crazy, but that you should murder anybody who thinks you shouldn't. And he found these lopers and organized them. And they want to scrub the record of my performance in college, my volunteerism among unemployed students on Mount Desert Island, giving them shelter, the way my mother paid to keep a roof over Raymond Geiger's head, the way I wrote the clubhouse monthly editorial, which even now are morale building essays. I like reading them. It's clear I contributed. And I tried to save the life of the girl who was murdered, for which they punished me because they're criminally psychotic people. And they're after some kind of rainbow pot of gold that Yoko Ono has promised them as a bounty hunt. They want to scrub, Carrie Sylvester's in on this. Not your father, no, you. So she wants to single me out and scrub the record of my achievements in Phi Theta Kappa and Psi Beta. Well, I shouldn't have been given such a chance to prove myself. They matter. It's next to impossible to imagine, to get back on topic, erasing the legacy of my father. No matter how hard you try, Donald Toon, there will always be somebody who says, "What's this?" when they come across a text about the history of the American public school system. Who doesn't see cowboy and Indian movies? Who doesn't see the death of Lumumba? Who doesn't see the pale white Kennedy in bed with Frank Sinatra's mistress? Who sees the legacy and history of the American public school system? Foundations of Modern Education is another one. A career built serving students at the University of Pittsburgh, taking a step down societally in the eyes of the Bush Cluck or Ringo Starr, doing something virtuous to educate less fortunate students. He turned down the presidency of the University of Georgia because they wouldn't integrate the school. And he didn't tell me about that until he was on his deathbed. It was something he was keeping to make me proud of him. Ryland Wesley Crary is not going to be erased from the legacy of the University of Pittsburgh. And what these defecators, these Hunians like Moon Unit Zappa, think they can pull with the help of Kerry Sylvester in Seattle is eradicating me from his namesake. And they're falling over each other, humiliating their own reputations to do it. No matter how many times the evil wizard Robert Fripp pimps his stupendous glories, he will never convert Jimmy Crary into anything other than a touching, affectionate, loving, caring, doting, but humiliated boyfriend of Leslie Katz. He'll never succeed because there's no truth to any of that. Was the letter a letter from the evil genius Roger Waters and Penis J. Sinfield to Yoko Ono? Well, I mean, I guess if you believe in MK Ultra, you could construe it that way. They were working with an Attica State Prison psychiatrist after all. But this is about team players. Imagine if somebody who was making off with the money of the Donbass and giving it to the Kiev kids got caught. And he said, well, God told me to do it, and God is always on both sides. Yeah, like with Peter Sinfield. Why did you rip her back knife from James McRyland? Because God is always on both sides, man. Wow! That's heavy. That's neat. Wormtongue is always on both sides, too. They want to be team players to the people who devastated our society. And far from resenting that I'm an individualist who managed to escape, at least for a while, their criminal imposition, these buzzards actually are demented enough to think that they are an ethical society and that they're promoting their reputation by taking Mackenzie Shirilla hostage to their wargaming, by murdering Shannon Harps, by poisoning me in the mouth, by pimping hired girls so they can make peep shows on behalf of hustlers like the Israelis. And they say, why did you go back to visit Brucker? Well, the truth is I was in a neurotrauma and I couldn't figure out what the hell happened. And I needed to find out what had happened. I had to try to find out what happened. I began questioning some people. See, they don't want investigation of what they did. They prefer to play guerrilla theater war operations because they figure if you get someone frightened and confused enough to flip out, you've got them erased from University of Pittsburgh history. And the Russians want that very badly because they have a land stake in the philosophical reputation that they carry at this unique logical positivism center of learning. And you can't expect the Russians not to believe that God is always on both sides. They'll take anything they can get from American society. So who is it that's playing both sides? Certainly isn't me playing both sides. I didn't think of any of this stuff. They wouldn't even let me play Dungeons and Dragons because I was deaf. It's a madcap casino operation they call entertainment. And for some reason, these despicable people just can't get enough of it. Look what they've done to Jimmy Carrey already. They've given him Parkinson's. They kept him out of school for 12 years. Take what kind of gang they're in, okay? The gangs have similar values and similar codes of etiquette. So Gail Burson used to say, "Hello, good friend, I love you." Nobody believes Israel loves America has any sense. They made me deaf. They tortured me. They laughed about dragging me through glass. They framed me in such a way that I was thoroughly humiliated as a rejected lover, or non-lover, I should say. But she says, "Hello, good friend, I love you." This is just like Pina Sinfield saying, "I love you, man." This is just like Rosine Francesca Arnberg, or whatever she is. "I love you, I love you, I will never leave you." They'll say anything. They're performers. They're clown show. And they're deadly. Because what does that have? Huh? What principle do you think you're operating under? You protected John Schulman for 12 years so he could continue his thieving after I tried to report it. And you call it a principle. What's the principle? Thieving money bag principle, right? So, I mean, it's contemptible. And every single one of these murderous people, criminals, has an icon to show for it. They have sound mental health, University of Pittsburgh, University of Washington, Medicaid, Obama Center. You know, they wear tokens of their glory. And then, you know, the old story of kicking the dog when you get home. That's how they see me, and that's how they treat me, and that's where it's at for them. And they can't stop themselves. They can't get enough of it. And you know, gaslighting is something where you try to drive somebody up against the wall so they lash. Tommy Cartier used to do it. And this is TC, right? Tacoma Center. Tommy Cartier used to do it. He'd give me the finger and 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 give me the finger. When I finally tried to defend myself by giving it back to him, he beat my brains in. That's this whole system, this whole gang. Amelia Zappa glorifies in it. She puts up pimp ideas that my name will be rubbed out of history. Well, rub my name out of history. Give it a go. Give it a try. I mean, if that's what you think you can do, give it a go. I'm not sanctioning you doing it, but I know I can't stop you. I have a picture of Cersei Kennedy on my wall to remind me what you fuckers are capable of. Your so-called loyalty oath. To who?